In a world where heroes and the demon lord are in constant war, a certain dungeon is experiencing a problem, and that is the monster's declining birth rates. One day, the dungeon master, a heavenly king, cries out yet again, "Just have sex already." A certain person says that he knew the boss wouldn't be so easy. In her reply, the assistant Saille says that she is just a lowly assistant and she cannot be compared with her master. Moments later, someone starts to laugh and says that he did well to reach him and asks him to handle this by himself. It is the heavenly king of the north, Egin, who is suffering from lumbago. He continues by saying that he has done nothing but sit for weeks so his hips hurt like hell, and it's all because of the idiotic heroes who go around killing every monster in sight like it's a contest. Since there are hardly any monsters, almost 100% of them get to the boss rooms and he just stands by in a stone chair. The guy falls down as he asks what is the heavenly king even saying. The assistant asks him how long is this gonna go on and tells him that they don't have enough hands for the repopulation effort. The king asks her to just work harder if that's the case. Saille pulls and teases him as she repeats that they do not have enough hands for the repopulation effort. Finally, he goes along with Saille and sees some smiles. Mollusks are the slimes with a high reproductive capability, and touching them feels nice. Egin sees that there are only 3 of them left and asks Saille why she thinks monsters exist in his dungeon. Egin proceeds to tell on his own that the monsters exist in his dungeon for his sake because no way he will fight those battle-crazy heroes. Moreover, Egin says to Saille that unicorns like her aren't much help in his dungeon. Unicorns take on the form of a horse with a single horn and can only be touched by pure maidens. They are also savage in nature and will kill those who touch them if they are not virgins. In her reply, Saille tries to justify by saying that she absolutely can be useful in the case of repopulation. In her research for a way to easily discern virginity from others, she had gained extensive knowledge in biology. She says that according to the reports, the slimes stopped multiplying and their numbers have dwindled. She says that the reason behind this is that they have likely hit their asexual reproduction limit. After reaching old age, even slimes have to breed to continue their species. Egin was surprised to know that she actually does some research. Little later, Saille asks the slimes to split into pairs and begin breeding. To which, Egin asks her if she forgot how to count as there are only 3 slimes and she is asking them to split into pairs. One of the slimes goes to Egin and asks if his own kind doesn't excite him and if he likes sexy adventurer ladies better. Egin thinks that these things are so disgusting that he almost wants them to die out, but he just thinks of something interesting at the same time. While Saille wondered what is Egin's interesting idea, Egin said that the slimes usually adapt to their prey's silhouette and trick their prey into letting their guards down. While Egin tries to give the slimes a shape, one of the smiles tells him that he is doing it wrong and tells him how to do it correctly, which Egin finds confusing as to why he has to listen to a slime. Egin gives 2 of the smiles a female look, which as per him turned out pretty well. Saille was surprised to see that he molded the slimes as pure maidens. Finally, Egin asks them to start the reproduction process. While they started doing so, Egin, Saille and another smile looked at them. Egin notices that Saille is acting weirdly and tries to tease her by asking if she is not making sexually charged statements. Saille squeezes his face with a smile as she says that she is not the type to get excited over just that and asks him politely to not sexually harass her like that. Later on, they wonder if it is actually working. Egin believes that they are about to become one in order to exchange cores, and it finally happens. Both the slimes become one and they finally reproduce a slime, and it seems to be going well. While looking at it, Egin doesn't say anything and Saille asks if his heart skipped a beat over witnessing a freshly born virgin. To which, Egin denies and says that this is fine and they should not have any problems with appearances now. He then leaves the rest to them and wishes them good luck. The slimes seem to be very excited and Egin feels like he just made a mistake. A few days later, Egin wonders how the slimes turned out and decides to look into their room through a mirror. It appears to Egin that the slimes had turned into one hell of a brothel. Little later, assistant Saille comes and informs Egin that 2 strangely refreshed heroes are coming. Egin uninterestedly says that they were randomly pretty strong. After the slimes, it was Dullahan's turn. While looking at the papers, Egin says that his high stats alone warrant his prioritization. Saille asks Egin if he is standing a bit far, to which he says that she is imagining things. When Egin asks Dullahan to start breeding already, he blushes and says that he is harassing him. Dullahans are fairies who carry their heads in their arms rather than atop their necks. They absolutely hate being seen, and when they are, the witness's eyes suffer damage. Saille and Egin had already suffered damage to their visions. Saille believes that there is a more important question to be asked. She proceeds to ask if he is still a virgin and Dullahan attacks her with his weapon as he says that it's sexual harassment. Egin calms Dullahan down and assures him that he has misunderstood something, as they had come to help him with his population issues because they had the lowest success rate with the marriage hunting parties. When Egin asks him why it is so, Dullahan finds it embarrassing to tell. He finally builds up courage and says that they are a race that doesn't really handle one-to-one situations well, and their chances of socialization decrease with their numbers. Saille summarizes his issue as their communication disorders had gotten worse and Dullahan agrees with her. When two Dullahans were brought in front of each other, they did not face each other and kept their heads behind their backs. When Egin asks them what they are doing, they say that if their eyes meet, they'd only end up hurting each other and it takes a while to get used to it. Egin and Saille find it lame and Egin decides to try something different. He puts the female ones through holes in a wall so that they don't see each other while reproducing. Saille finds his idea worse. A few days later, Egin creates the perfect Dullahan matchmaking system by creating an assembly hall for them. The bodies would go into the hall and have the heads monitor from a different room. When Saille asks Egin how are things going, he says that when he thinks about how he is helping decrease the number of virgins, his skin acts up. However, Saille was asking about the assembly hall. After hearing that, Egin asks the Dullahan to just go already as he has only got two choices. It is either he goes there or it's the holes in the wall. Dullahan feels embarrassed as he says that the only ones that can go there are the extroverts and he wouldn't be able to talk to someone even if he went in. To solve this issue, Egin brings up a random male passerby and asks Dullahan to go and talk with him while he is there. Egin motivates him to go and do it like animals. Dullahan still declines and says that he can't just separate from his body like that, and even if he did then it wouldn't change a thing. However, once he went in, he was also surprised when he realized that they really did it like animals. Soon after, Saille finds Egin and asks him why he is sneaking around in front of his own room. Saille shows him the child that was born the other day. Egin decides to hold the child in his hands. Saille warns him to be careful about the neck of the child. As Egin assures Saille and tells her that he is not that stupid, the child's head flops away from his body and it scares out Egin. Saille asks Egin if she did not say this was a Dullahan, which she actually didn't. Egin cries as he finds all the Dullahans just so horrifying. The Dullahans had taken over his room. They said that it was easier to fight if they monitored from far away. Egin asked Saille if he had not said to not include Dullahans when the dungeon was made. To which she says that whatever could he possibly be referring to, he is a scaredy cat. The girl was wandering around because she was bored. Just when she was walking home from school, she thought a bus was going to hit her, but then she was in some fantasy world where everyone was calling her a hero. Suddenly, she hears someone screaming inside a cave and runs toward it thinking that someone is getting attacked. It was Egin and Saille along with a monster. The girl was surprised to see a monster. Egin looks at her and says that she has come at the right time and asks her to lend him a hand. The monster was giving birth while Egin, Saille and the girl stood beside and looked after her. The girl was unable to process what was happening. The girl finds it insane that she nearly got hit by a truck and she was brought to some cliché fantasy world. Everyone wants her to play hero and now she is helping a monster give birth. She thinks of it to be some kind of joke. Egin calls her roadkill and asks her to wipe the orc's sweat. While she did so, Saille was staring at her and she trembled but said that she was fine. The girl whispers to Egin if they need to do something. She is surprised when Egin tells her that she doesn't need to do anything because Saille is a unicorn. The girl starts to blush. Suddenly, she sees that the child is almost there. Saille happily reassures that the orc births don't take a lot of time. Egin calls her roadkill once again and asks her to talk to him. She tries to talk with him by saying that he can do it. Suddenly, she spaces out for a while. She felt touched by thinking that just when she thought she was gonna be run over by a truck on her way home from school, she was transported to a fantasy world. Now she is being called a hero or whatever, and on top of that, she is helping a monster give birth. She considers this as some kind of joke as he starts sobbing. Egin thinks of it as a creepy broken record. A little later, as Egin wears his coat, he says that he has kept her long enough, and orders the orc to attack her. Seeing that the orc had pulled out his hammer and they were going to attack her, she started to run away. Egin says that orcs would hold a weapon well before they feel their mother's touch and asks roadkill if she is going to stain the newly born baby's honor. After running away, she reaches the Adventurers Guild. While she is reading some books there, someone approaches her and says that he has heard that she ran away from the dungeon up north. The girl asks him not to talk, which he finds scary. The guy notices that she is reading books related to childbirth and babies. He is shocked to see this. While she thinks and decides not to lose to an orc next time, the guy starts crying and says that she should just ask for help, and the girl tells him that he has got the wrong idea. Inside the library of the dungeon at north, someone is heard shouting. It is Phoenix, who is shouting while dodging the knives that Egin is throwing at her. Egin asks her why she dodged the knives when she herself said that she wanted to die. The Phoenix says that she wanted to be reborn and she had said that it was about time for her to weaken soon, so she asked Egin to help her. A little later, Saille comes to the scene with a lot of books and says that death by stabbing will not work as phoenixes are reborn by willingly dying in flames, and anything besides that will fail. After hearing this, Egin decides that if it'll help her get stronger then she has no other choice. Phoenix relaxes herself and leaves it to him. Phoenix are immortal form. When their rebirth season arrives, they scatter fragrant wooden logs and set them ablaze, and using those flames, they cinematically burn themselves alive ending with them rising from the ashes in a more childlike form. Saille says that wood like that is too expensive and she does not wish to spend that much on a non-virgin, which was a clear discrimination by her. As Phoenix cries while asking Egin for help, he says that even without that part, it is still pretty expensive. He asks Phoenix if she just wants good smelling wood, so he decides to do something about it. Phoenix is taken to an open field. She sees some powder type stuff and asks what it is. Egin says that they are wood shavings for smoke cooking as aroma trees are too expensive. Phoenix says that she doesn't want to be cooked and asks them to go and get the right wood. Saille then asks her what can they help with. Phoenix spaces out for a while and then says that burning to death is scary. Before Phoenix could say anything else, Egin says that it is best to do this all in one go and says that he will ignite it on 3. Phoenix asks him to wait and asks if he is going to start at 0 or 1 and tells him that she is not ready yet, but Egin does not wait anymore and burns her. While she burns down and screams in pain, Egin and Saille watch her by sitting a little away from her. They find it a bit traumatizing for them to see her burn, as her HP is so high that she is basically not dying. Finally, after she is completely burnt, she comes out of the ashes. Egin picks her up with one hand and observes her and says that it worked. Phoenix gets frustrated and asks him to be careful as she was just born, so she is squishy. After cleaning up the remains, Saille comes and picks her up and congratulates her for her rebirth. Saille finds her sticky, but as soon as she says that she is a virgin once again, her judgment says that she is not a virgin and attacks Phoenix. Egin exclaims and grabs Phoenix from Saille and asks if she has any excuse, to which she says that she has no excuses as her body moved on its own. Later on, while Saille is practicing her fighting skills, Phoenix asks her to watch her guard better and questions her that if she cannot even protect herself, then how is she going to protect her? She continues by saying that it's her fault that she didn't get reborn properly. Suddenly, Saille puts wood shavings over her once again and says that it is an apology gift for her, and that she is protecting her because she is in her weakened stage. Phoenix starts shouting as she realizes that she is gonna smoke her once again. Egin comes and ignites Phoenix while asking them not to fight. Her revival still ages away. When Egin returns and enters the northern dungeon, he is exhausted and sees Saille killing someone. Saille greets her Egin-sama and tells him that a cheater of a hero showed up, so she decided to take care of them early while the cheater could not understand what they were. Egin appreciates Saille for winning. Saille asks him if he was at the eastern dungeon and asks what is in the box. Egin says that it is an aphrodisiac, but it is actually ingredients. He got a few sayings. Mandragoras are plants that take on the form of humanoid roots. They are often used for love potions and aphrodisiacs. Egin thinks that it looks exactly like a normal plant and says that if they planted these in the dungeon, then those heroes would never see them coming. Egin decides to plant one right away as a test. Saille wonders if this is right, as he heard that the screams it makes when uprooted can cause people to go insane. Egin tells her that that's for the seedlings. Once it is mature, it comes out of the ground and starts crawling around. After Egin planted it, all that is left is to pour some magic into it so it grows. This is what the boss from the east told him, so Egin was not completely sure and Saille was getting anxious after hearing this. Egin decides to hold back a bit while pouring magic into it. It appears to be going fairly well, and then Egin suddenly remembers that he was told to not let any animals near when he starts pulling it out so that they don't hear the screams. Egin looks at Saille and then Saille looks at him. Egin says that he will put a barrier just in case and asks the slimes to go away. Egin decides to start pulling it out and says that this thing will try to escape as soon as it is out and decides to kill it immediately. However, it appears to be quite weak already and says that he feels sorry for being born because Egin wants ingredients and he is holding its neck and it will die if he cuts it. Egin hands it over to Saille and asks to leave it alone for now. Saille asks if it isn't because he decided not to put enough magic into it. It tries to enter Saille's clothes, saying that it needs the ground. Saille doesn't like it and starts stretching it. Egin tries to stop Saille as it is just a plant and it is not evil or anything. Finally, Egin decides to put more magic into the next one. A few hours later, Egin says to Saille that he wants to make these things his hobby because they change so much just based on the magic. Saille reminds him that he needs them for ingredients and says that they are not keeping them. While Saille looks at some of them and wonders what's so good about them, she sees a plant that is a bit larger than the others. Egin says that he puts so much magic in it that now it's so big that he can't pull it out and says that she might be able to pull it out by herself. As it comes out, Egin and Saille are surprised to see a huge plant with a big body. Egin and Saille stomp over it until it goes back down and decides to pretend that they didn't see that. Two heroes finally manage to get to the dungeon and they were already so beat up. The girl asks him to hold himself together. She sees a plant at a distance and thinks of it as a herb and decides to make a medicine out of it real quick, but as soon as she tries to pull it out, the huge plant comes out. Dungeons are full of dangers and a never-heard scream echoed through the caves. In the caves where the slimes were reproducing, there was one slime that was constantly hitting a pole. The sound of its loneliness echoed through the paradise. He would look at other slimes enjoying reproducing and feels frustrated. Egin and Saille had been looking at it for a while. Egin tells it that they kinda came to tell it not to do anything weird with the heroes. However, after looking at it, he wondered if it was doing some kind of training. Egin says that he heard that it was the only one who has not produced any offspring since then. The slime admires the warmth and the touch of heroes. Egin understood that it did not want his own kind and wondered why its stats were so high. The slime says that it is so because of how high they are. It has to look down on others to keep himself sane. Egin realizes that it is making things worse. Egin thinks deeply that it would be awful if it didn't leave any offspring when its stats are so high, and decides to look for a mate from a different species for the slime. However, the chances of pregnancy with other species is really low, and on top of that, he had never heard of a slime paired together with a humanoid monster, but he also heard that it's possible if they follow the ceremony mentioned in a book called Interspecies Mating. Saille looks at it and wonders if this book is fairly important or not, to which Egin says that it is not because it is just extra pages in a magazine he got this month. First of all, they went to succubi. They find the slime so cool and agree to mate with it as they are compatible with most species anyway, and the things they can do with the slime seem great to them. However, the slime says that succubi are bitches, which they didn't like at all and decide to fight it. Egin realizes that this is not working and decides to go to the next one. They lost the chance for the slime to mate with the most humanoid species. Egin tells the slime not to say anything weird as they will try with a few more. Next up, they reached out to Lamia and asked if she had any siblings, and turns out she is the only child. The slime says that taking care of its parents-in-law is a bit. Later on, they went to a troll. When they ask her where is she from, she says that she is from a swamp in the eastern forest. The slime rejects her because she is a country bumpkin and she doesn't really seem to be very hygienic type. They then reach out to a harpy, but the slime finds the ones with expensive hobbies kind of tough. This kept going on and the slime continued to reject every single one of them for one reason or another. Egin and Saille got frustrated by the slime's behavior. Egin asks Saille to rejoice as their meal for the day will be this slime that keeps making things worse, with vegetables on the side. Saille agrees with this and is completely fine with tearing it apart right away. While teasing the slime with a stick, Saille says that rather than just making things worse, this slime just has an awful personality, and finds it stubborn. Suddenly, a mermaid came out of the water and requested them not to bully the slime so much. Egin tells her that it is not bullying, they are disposing of him. She responds back saying that that's not good either because that slime once helped her before and he even got fatal injuries. The mermaid says that she has heard that they are looking for a partner for the slime and says that she is a mermaid, so she is a bit cold to touch and she has scales here and there, but she still wants to be the slime's wife. Even the slimes agree this time. Egin hadn't thought that it would end up with a mermaid. Saille asks if they just have to follow that ceremony now, but to her surprise, Egin tells that it was just an extra in a magazine, so it is probably fake. Egin did this just to make it give up and just go to the other slimes, but Egin concludes that failures like this are fine sometimes and he wishes them everlasting happiness. In fiction, mermaids are shining, beautiful, kind to everyone, and are role models for young girls everywhere. But in reality, mermaids have absolutely awful personalities. A mermaid asks her Egin-sama if he could introduce them to a few guys. She continues by saying that a slime might be great for that bland girl he met, but they would rather have more hardcore guys. They all laughed while making fun of that mermaid who chose to mate with a slime. Mermaids are creatures bearing the upper body of a beautiful maiden and the bottom half of a fish. Because of how awful they are, talking with one is the same as trending on a minefield, at least to monsters. The bland mermaid says that she does not fit in with the others. The slimes reassure her by saying that it is okay and she should stay just the way she is. Saille says to the other mermaids that it is not as if they introduced that mermaid to smile. One of the mermaids interrupts her and asks her why is she speaking so stiffly and asks her to relax a bit, then they can be on the same page. Saille says that she is more used to this manner of speech, but the mermaids interrupt her once again and start talking with each other. One of the mermaids asks the other one if unicorns are like killing anyone who is not a virgin. The other mermaid asks her if she is a virgin then she should try touching her. He replies by saying that she would not touch a unicorn and she is not a virgin either. Saille asks Egin to lend her 3 seconds to dye the lake red out of anger, but Egin denies her and says that this is why he told her to wait. Egin tells Saille that she is not good with provocations, that's why she is a great target for the mermaids. One of the mermaids says that they are really pretty, so it is kind of like they are out of everyone's leagues, and so if they don't get along with their partners then they will just feel awkward too. Then she was about to speak about the male mermaids, but the other mermaid stopped her while laughing at them. Another mermaid says that her Egin-sama is cool but being skinny is a no-go. Later on, the mermaids leave the place. Egin punches the wall out of frustration, saying that the mermaids picked at his insecurities like that. He is a mage who fights with buffs and debuffs, not with his fists. Egin decides to match the mermaids up with their own kind even if it kills him. Saille sees how hurt Egin is and says that they hit a nerve. Egin then decides to head to the male's place. When Egin and Saille reach the male's place, they see that the mermen are just playing board games and passing their time. Egin and Saille were left speechless. Mermen are the male side of the merflock. Unlike females, they live their lives with an innate feeling of inferiority. They cannot even look at females directly. When the mermen notice that their Egin-sama has come, Egin goes to one of the mermen and starts squeezing his face while saying that they are so ugly that it circles back to being charming. Egin simply asks them to go and breed with the females. The merman in his hand starts to panic and says that he cannot breed with the females as they are too scary, and he can't even imagine it. Egin realizes that even the males have personality issues. Saille suggests to her Egin-sama that he should let go of the merman whom he has been squeezing till now. Egin decides to introduce them to new fetishes. At first, Saille does not get it, so Egin decides to elaborate. He says, first, they will make the females masochists, which is a form of sexual preference in which one experiences through mental, emotional, or physical pain. Then, they will make them aroused at the idea of getting violated by such ugly males. Saille asks to her Egin-sama if he can hear himself. Egin continues by saying that the fetish for the guys will be disciplining. Egin calls the act of humiliating those who look down on them and then making them know their right place the heart of disciplining. Saille thinks that it is not a bad idea as mermaids are curious at heart. She had heard that they create groups by luring in others with their appearance and preferences. She thinks that if one falls then the rest will also take interest. Egin, Saille and the mermen went to the place where the mermaids were. They find one of the mermaids on the surface. Egin considers it as the perfect timing and asks Saille to show them how it is done. When the mermaid notices them, as soon as she starts to say something provoking to the unicorn, she dashes towards her and kicks her in the face. Egin was shocked to see that Saille showed absolutely no mercy and it was just violence, overwhelming violence. Egin notices that Saille looks happy and wonders if this is how disciplining worked. Then he looks at the mermaid and notices that she looks happy too while she wonders why it feels so good even though it hurts. Egin notices that even the mermen look happy. Egin considers this as a failure and decides to abandon the plan. However, later when he returned with Saille, he was surprised to see that more kids were born since then and the population is stable now, but it is just a really awful view. The mermaids were enjoying the pain and the mermen were taking advantage of it. They had opened a door that was best left closed. The girl who somehow got into this world plans to go into the dungeon once again. However, she gets irritated to see that the guy from the Adventurers Guild is following her. When she asks him why he keeps on following her, he says that he has heard that there was an idiot who went into the dungeon again. The girl says to him that he is weaker than her. The guy did not like it at first, but then he says that he is a priest and he can't help it. The girl couldn't believe it from the way he was dressed. The priests, belonging to a distinguished job class known for their expertise in healing and providing support through the use of powerful spells, have always been revered in the community. A particular priest, known for his deep sense of empathy and compassion, finds it difficult to witness anyone in need without offering his assistance. On a fateful day, as he encounters a situation where a helpless individual is left alone and in distress, he feels a painful tug in his heart. With a heavy heart, the priest unveils a small knife from his robes and utters a solemn declaration, stating that should he ever turn a blind eye to those who require aid, he would be consumed by overwhelming guilt. However, a young girl who witnesses this exchange finds herself perplexed, her brows furrowed with confusion. In her eyes, the priest's spoken words seem disconnected from his kind and gentle appearance, causing her doubts to surface. Yearning for clarity, she musters the courage to address her feelings, requesting the priest to cease his unsettling behavior, as it leaves her feeling uncertain and unsettled. The priest tells her that fighting on her own is dangerous and wonders that she was invited by a few guys into a party but she did not join them. The girl crouches and starts crying while saying that she thought everyone was an enemy when she first got to this world, so she thinks that everyone definitely hates her. Moreover, she doesn't even know how to act in front of everyone. She starts running as she asks the priest to stop acting nice as it makes her feel awful. The priest tells her not to run as it's bad if she runs in here because they don't know what kind of traps might trigger. As soon as the girl realizes this, she steps on a trap that was made by the merman. The priest gets caught in the trap and gets tied up. While the girl apologizes to the priest and tries to untie the ropes, Egin and Saille look at them while hiding behind a wall. Egin says that the girl who got hit by a truck is back and she is stronger now, so it is best if they kill her here. Saille declines his request, asserting that she is as rare and virtuous as a diamond, and declares herself to be Egin's admirer. Egin inquires about their next steps and whether they should consider recruiting her. Saille rejects the idea and instead suggests diminishing her will to fight. When the girl discovers that she is unable to release herself from the restraints, an orc approaches in order to engage in combat. The girl realizes that it is the same orc from earlier, the one she encountered as a baby. However, the priest misinterprets her remark and mistakenly believes that she has already given birth to a baby orc. The girl observes that the orc has grown significantly since their initial encounter. The young orc approaches the girl and affectionately embraces her leg, resulting in a heartfelt reunion accompanied by a resounding sound. This interaction establishes a tender connection between a mother and her child. Overwhelmed by the baby orc's adorable appearance, the girl comes to the realization that she cannot bring herself to harm him. she decides to distance herself from the situation, unable to carry out any harm. Meanwhile, the priest perceives this act as a form of neglect towards the child. Once the girl had fled, only the priest and the orc remained in the vicinity. An air of stillness enveloped the space as their glances locked, forming a momentary silence that lingered between them. In this tense atmosphere, the priest mustered the courage to voice his disapproval of the orc's actions. However, to his utmost surprise, the orc abruptly responded with a forceful headbutt, delivering a nearly fatal blow that left the priest contemplating his inevitable demise. This unexpected turn of events marked a definitive conclusion for the embattled priest.